and start everything. So that way we can already have the link.
Okay.
And start everything. So that way we can already have the link.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I gotta start everything. Wait, I gotta turn the volume off on that. And then turn all the volume off on this, especially that.
Let me go ahead and mute.
Oh, damn it. Get off that. No. Turn all the volume.
There you go. I wonder if I turn this off, would it be to one of the other monitors?
All right, going live.
Okay.
What? Word on the street today. Progress democracy is now coming up short. I can't watch while evolution falls apart. Bury me in history with Nancy Morgan Hart. Before I'm forced back to the start, it's my life to choose. Not bigots or misogynists, not even all liberals. It's their fight to lose. I'm a modern anarchist, a punk rock existentialist who wants to make the whole world feminist. On social media, what's really going on? Opinions without action never gets anything done. And I'll be gratified by trying to play my part. Revolutionary martyrdom won't tear us apart. You can change my name to Joan of Arc. It's my right to choose. Not racist or nationalist, not this fascist presidents. It's their fight to lose. I'm a masochistic activist, a modern abolitionist who wants to make the whole world humanist. All my anxieties are out of hand. We need to overcome somehow. We have to stand for unifying. Together forever, the time is now. It's my life to choose. Not zealots or supremacists, not the old right separatists. It's their fight to lose. I'm a modern nihilist, a radical idealist. It's my right to choose. Not the religious lunatics or fundamental extremists. It's their fight to lose. I'm a modern anarchist, a punk rock existentialist who wants to make the whole world coexist.
All right. Welcome to In Other News. I'm your host, Rachel Bloomstrom. This is the show that tries to cover all things that mainstream media either doesn't cover, undercovers, or might be misleading on. Today, we are continuing for our main story, the series on the male supremacy movement called The Enemy is Woman into the Manosphere. We're going to be looking very closely at the patriarchal violence committed by mostly incels, but we will be talking about a few other people, from pickup artists to revenge porn. We are joined again today by Zach Bird out of Florida. How are you doing, Jack?
I am doing pretty great. I am out of Florida, and if you can't tell by my background, maybe because you can't see my background, I am not in my usual setup. I am dog sitting for my friend right now, so you may hear some barking, and it's not me.
That's what he says. But if you're not watching, you can believe that. But if you are watching, you know it's a lie. Anyways, so we do have quite a few things that are going on right now. Obviously, we got to talk about the news because, you know, we want to also keep up on what the main people are talking about, but plus also some of the things that are a little lower. So I actually have a couple of stories out of Chicago that also are, you know, implicating the larger thing for our Black Lives Matter focus. We have a story. It's a road rage victim. A woman was shot 6 times on I-57, and she is a Black woman. The bullet holes came in through the back of the vehicle. So she was cut off, and then with road rage, she went and cut him off. Apparently they exchanged some vulgarities and slurs, and then came the shots. So Aaliyah Ivory, who was shot by this person, was on the way to see her sister. She did have a concealed carry license. She did not think of getting a gun when you just have a disagreement on the road. However, the shooter, whose name we still don't have, which I think is crazy. I'm so sick of this. Like, if you've been following any of the Black Lives Matter news where I've been sharing, they almost never will give us the name of the perpetrator. So this person said that they feared for their life, even though they were following her, and shot through the back of her vehicle. And this happened a couple of weeks ago. I've been trying to wait to see if I can't get a name, but I haven't. So I'm going to have to follow up with that police station directly. And she said, concealed or not, or her sister said, concealed or not, that is outrageous. That just simple words could enrage you like that. And the shooter also had a concealed carry license, and he told the troopers that he feared for his life. And they said, how did he fear for his life? I never drew my gun. I gave him no reason to shoot me. And then you shoot me 6 times, and they have not charged this person. Wow. That's not even stand your ground. That's chase them down. Isn't that
jury and executioner trying to be Judge Dredd out there?
Yes. Road rage incidents here in Chicago are up 35% from last year, actually.
Wow, 35%.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have another story quite similar, which is another road rage incident shooting in Chicago. Only this one involved an off-duty police officer. So a family files a lawsuit as a mom remains on life support after the I-55 shooting involving a cop. So the woman who was driving, her name is Urbina. She's the one who was shot, but the argument was between the passenger of her vehicle, which was her boyfriend, I believe, and then the off-duty police officer. So the boyfriend, it says they exchanged gunfire, but the boyfriend is filing a lawsuit because they also will not release this cop's name. He has not been, taken off duty. He is still out on the streets with his trigger happy finger.
Of course he is.
Yes. So Enrique said he's filed a public information request with the guy or with the department because we want to know who he is. And that I lost my note. The officer shot first and he claimed that there was a green laser light to him. And the officers who are also from his department are claiming that he had a laser pointer and some sort of illegal switch on his gun that would make it automatic, but he hadn't fired anything there. And do you know how this happened? Urbina was slow off the line of a light turning green, and it made the cop mad. And so then changed some arguments, and then supposedly it continued onto the expressway. Like, the officer is required to absolutely try to de-escalate a situation, but instead he continued to escalate, obviously. Where's my main story? So what Urbina's attorney, Richard Dvorak, told reporters on Wednesday, rather than de-escalate the situation in the first place by slowing down, by pulling over, by exiting, by calling 911, by, I don't know, just letting them go about their lives and like him going about his life, he instead escalated it. And the result is a young woman who is the mother of 2 children is in ICU right now fighting for her life. The lawsuit claims that the officer fired first and broke Chicago Public or Police Department rules by, quote, engaging in an unjustified verbal or physical altercation while off duty. There was literally no reason to continue this.
Except for his own sense of justice, whatever justice that is, for someone for a vehicle infraction, if that.
I mean, I have interactions with people on the road all the time. We even do a segment on here called Road Rage with Rachel, which is going to follow immediately after the story. But like literally stop engaging. That is the number one thing you tell everyone. And you expect somebody like a police officer that they should know how to do that, but they do not. And they get away with it time and time again. And they kill people like state sanctioned. This guy, we can't even get his name. So obviously you can expect I will be following up on this story as well. I can't believe the Sun Times, who actually found out who the officer was, wouldn't release his name. So way to go, Chicago Sun Times, for being the
protecting a murderer.
Yeah, for protecting a murderer, for attempted murderer.
Yeah.
So the attorney is preparing to write a letter to State Attorney Kim Foxx demanding to know why Urbina was referred to as a co-offender during the initial bond hearing. She was just driving. This was like machismo BS. He said it's outrageous that she is somehow responsible for her own injuries or to be criminally liable for what he did. It is
unhinged. That's like pretty much like the from Unhinged, just chasing down somebody wanting to inflict harm.
Yeah. Like sometimes when I have interactions with people, you know what I ask them? What is wrong with you? Will you leave me alone? Stop it. That's what I say. I'm not trying to exchange things. You know, I mean, sometimes you'll have a funny conversation. Like that's the worst. I talked about a weird conversation I had from a guy doing that. And I said, why are you like this? And one time somebody from the other call, like, I saw it. You did do that. You were being an a-hole. And I was like, maybe just don't do that. Like, you know,
you answer someone like just giving like their whole life story. Well, it started back in 2nd grade when I was made fun of for my nose.
I would love that. And I'd be like, do you want to talk about this? We could talk about it. So for Road Rage with Rachel segment this week, and I really should have kept one of our first guests on. She came up with a little ditty for it. I just want to say, like, quit retaliating. Just whatever you do, try not to affect the other cars on the road. I get that it is irritating. And like, you know I'm saying like sometimes I'll ask them if we get stuck, stop next to each other. I don't chase them down, but sometimes, you're on a 30-mile-per-hour 4-lane road and you're going to stop next to each other. It's the lights and they'll want to shout at you or whatever. So I'm usually literally trying to de-escalate or like ask like important grounding questions in the moment, because that is something I learned to ask myself as well, dealing with like anger management and things like that. So that's why, what is your problem? Why are you doing this? These are grounding questions. It's not an escalation. It's, like, what are you trying to accomplish? It can be a little irritating, but it's a true way to like get to it. Don't go cut them back off. Like, I'm not saying doing that the person deserved to be shot. Absolutely not. That is insane. I can't believe it's turning Wild West up here like it is in Houston, where everybody's like, well, I really would like some stricter laws on fearing for your life. If you feared for your life, why did you continue to engage? I don't buy it.
Yeah, I remember like honking your horn in Houston can get you killed sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. But the cop was the honker. The cop honked and then they got me. Like, it's not even necessarily like I try to make my honk sound friendly, like boop, boop. Sometimes like I push too hard and it's
there needs to be like another tone for the horn.
I need like a pay attention horn.
Like, hey, look at the light screen right in front of you. Like, hey, put your foot on gas and go.
Yeah. And then of the person, I've never understood this. Somebody being mad to like, you could see their heads down. You can see they're not paying attention and you honk at them. And then they get mad at you for honking at them and refuse to move. Like, why? Why are you like this? What are you trying to prove? What is your point? Why are you affecting it's not just me you're affecting. There's all these other people. Just keep it moving. That's it. That's all I want to say about it. Is just keep it moving, keep it going, quit escalating, quit retaliating, quit trying to affect the other cars on the road. It's never going to affect just you two unless it's 3:00 in the morning and you're somewhere. But honestly, if you start shooting, those bullets can go places. You're not supposed to be shooting in the city anyways. We're lucky that nobody besides the people they were shooting at were harmed. Oh, another rule. The cops are forbidden from shooting moving vehicles or from shooting from their own vehicle while moving. That's something else to think about. This cop did all sorts of things against the code, but yet
a stray bullet catches somebody in the head. Like, yeah, you're not in a stable position to shoot.
Right. It's not, you're not, it is against their rules. They are not allowed to do that. And there's reason for that.
Everyone wants to be Wyatt Earp. That's pretty much what it is. Everyone wants to be Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, well, I'm your Huckleberry. Anyways, so moving on. This next story is out of Florida. It's about more of the demoralizing attacks on the LGBTQIA plus community. Florida has now banned Medicaid coverage for gender-affirming healthcare, particularly for, underage kids under the age of 18. So the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration has finalized new rules banning healthcare providers from billing the state's Medicaid program for gender-affirming care. Under the new rules, puberty blockers, hormone therapies, and surgical procedures for the treatment of gender dysphoria will not be covered for patients of any age. And the new rule will take effect on August 21st, which I find very rude because that is my birthday. I will not be going to Florida for that.
Okay. You'll be in the middle of the Gulf, won't you?
Yeah, I'll probably be in I think I'll be in Cozumel. Yeah, I'll be in the Caribbean. It'll be beautiful. I'll probably be sailing on a catamaran, doing some snorkeling, drinking some drinks. It'll be great.
Sounds nice.
So this new rule is going horribly with other various medical agencies, Lambda Legal, Southern Legal Council, Florida Health Justice Project, National Health Law Program, and other LGBTQ and health rights groups released a joint statement. I'm talking about tons of big people all together saying, ignoring thousands of public comments and expert testimony, Florida's AHCA has finalized a rule that will deny Medicaid coverage for all medically necessary gender-affirming care for both youth and adults. This discriminatory and medically unsound rule will take place, putting transgender people in jeopardy of losing access to critical gender-affirming health care. It contradicts the overwhelming consensus of all major medical organizations. There's been tons of research on this. I'm sure, it feels like we're in the 90s again, just like
going backwards, like more 1980s, like under Reagan again.
Right.
DeSantis trying to look good for the RNC so he can get that nomination.
Well, he's got Rupert Murdoch behind him. He's there's been, whatever little tiff Trump is having with Rupert Murdoch, Trump's name is not getting mentioned like a fraction of the amount of time. And Fox News keeps calling him the man of the hour. So they are definitely ramping up to put him in a position. And to me, that's scary because he, as we've talked about before, that he's much more organized. He's much more coherent.
Yeah. Trump was a wild dog. DeSantis is a German Shepherd. No, that's a good analogy. A feral dog. I don't know, because he's also super pampered. He's just like, you know what? Trump is like a super
pampered, pretentious Pomeranian, and his hair is stupid. And he just yaps nonstop, like nobody's ever told him how to stop talking. And it's just like, you can't stop it. He thinks he's a whole lot bigger because Pomeranians actually used to be war dogs. They were like very large dogs, and they just bred them smaller and smaller and smaller. So they think they're these big, like effective, scary, intimidating dogs. And they're just tiny little shut up pissing.
Pom-poms.
You
He's like little pom-poms.
right. Like we can just shove you over. You're very weak.
I can take on like 50 of them.
Yeah, for real. Just get a broom and just sweep up the trash.
No offense to the Pomeranians out there.
Yeah. No offense to the Pomeranians. I've met some very nice ones, but I'm actually thinking I knew a family who had 4 Pomeranians, and what I'm describing was literally all of them. They were obnoxious. They never stopped. My friend was like so sleep deprived all day, all night. You couldn't handle them. They were untrained. Like it was a nightmare. It was really a nightmare.
Sounds rough.
Yeah.
Be me.
Let's see. It says, yeah, it also, wait, I was looking for this quote, but anyways, if you want to check out more on that, you can find it on LGBTQ Nation, which is a website I recommend often because, there's a constant onslaught in every state, right? Especially right now, going after LGBT people, and we need to help protect them. Like their rights and freedoms are a precursor to what they will continue to do, especially to women. We know they're going after, and especially to BIPOC people who lynchings have been on the rise. I did not write the story down, but there was another Black person this week who was hung and set on fire in Mississippi. And the cop said, there's no foul play. We think it's just suicide. Nobody hangs themselves from a tree and sets themselves on fire. I would say nobody hangs themselves from a tree, but outside of the suicide forest in Japan. But how are you going to set yourself on fire while you're already hanging?
Pick out the match, pour yourself with gasoline before you get up there. Light the match while you're hanging from the rope, but then like the rope could break. But of course, by then
the most heinous way to kill yourself, most people want it to be quick and painless.
Yeah, you don't see self-immolation as a suicide method very often. I think some Tibetan monks did it as a protest. That's about it. That was in protest.
Yes, and that's usually over human rights.
Yeah,
it's like it's supposed to represent what people are going through. But Black people will never ever hang themselves from a tree. Never. That identical. And I have been watching, especially. So it was at first when Obama was first elected in 2008, we saw the increase of a lot of violence against BIPOC people, especially Black people, especially in the South. And that is when they first got their gears moving to start this whole movement. And they all kind of started in their own ways, the white supremacists, the male supremacists, just, a lot of male supremacists are racist. There is the Black Manosphere, and they are aware of it, but sometimes, it turns into internalized racism, just like women have internalized misogyny in these groups. And it's, and now they're like in full force, like just thinking of like an old freight train, like all this weight behind it. And then it took several years to get it moving. And now Trump, put it in full speed and just abandon the train. Like this thing is running wild. And I'm really sick of mainstream media not covering these lynchings because they are a lot more common. Maybe I'll do an episode on them because I've done so many posts and stories of these on TikTok. It's horrifying, and I think people need to know better.
I would say it's like the Train to Busan. It's out of control. You have zombies on there attacking you, and you're just trying to survive.
Right. I was just thinking Snowpiercer all of a sudden.
That works too, because they're food and that it's like sorting grain meats.
Oh my God, that movie. Like, when I first watched it, I was like, "This is so stupid," and then I just thought about it, and I was like, "This movie is really smart."
Yeah.
It was hard to watch, and it does have some weird stuff going, but like when you really look at like the metaphors and the analogies and like actual things, like I'm just wondering when we're gonna start being fed roaches just in block cubes that look like jello. Here's your roach jello. Or what was it they called it? I don't know.
I forget. Someone thought it was something gold or something. I forget though. It's been a few years since I've seen the film.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a maybe we could cover that on our show, which by the way, our show Cousins Critiquing Content, I believe this weekend we're going to be trying to do a quick episode on Predator and Prey. We watched Prey and Predator and a couple of the movies. I kind of want to finish the series. I had never seen them. But that was pretty fun. So if you haven't seen Prey on Hulu, check it
Really
out.
good. Yeah, really dope.
Yeah, it was really good.
It's probably second best in the franchise. Either one or two is in the franchise.
Yeah.
First one's up there. First one's probably the best, and Prey's like right after it.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked him about equally, you know. I feel like I would love to have seen more teamwork in these, but the authors, directors, they want that one-on-one matchup. So what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean, James McTiernan went from that to Die Hard a couple years later, so he had that 1-2 directing punch.
Yeah. Yep. My favorite Christmas movie. So a little bit of tech news, but also like Cold War international, like warming up war news, whatever. Russian spacecraft accused of tailgating a U.S. spy satellite by just 37 feet. And you can find this story on futurism.com, or I'm sure there's other places. But basically, they were launching another spy satellite. And so they have been sneaking up this like things like, I think they called them just gadgets. Inspector satellites. At the same time. So basically their satellite is looking right at our satellite. It's within 37 feet of it, which they call really irresponsible behavior. And that's General James H. Dickinson, commander of the U.S. Space Command.
It feels like danger close.
Yeah.
So it feels like danger close for that, like 37 feet, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
in space, that's very, very close.
It is.
So, and General Dickinson said, we see that it's in a similar orbit to one of our high value assets for the U.S. government. And so we'll continue like we always do to continue to update that and track it. So I decided I wanted to know a little more about these, our satellites and stuff. And I think it's really, we were talking about it a lot also in the 90s, because I think by 72, we had already launched up like 83 satellites.
Yeah, I don't even know how many we're at now. I'm up thousands.
We're gonna get to it.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to know more too, and I still didn't get enough of a deep dive, but this is not the first time that Russia has put a similar inspector gadget into orbit. And not too long after former President Donald Trump formed America's valiant Space Force, Russia sent the first of the tailgating crafts, is what they're calling them, and that was in early 2020. Also uncomfortably close to a U.S. counterpart, marking the first encounter in which the U.S., at least publicly, faced a direct off-world threat to its military tech. So I wanted to know how many satellites do we have? And I looked at quite a few articles and the numbers are so varied. So I looked up how many spy satellites do we have? How many actual satellites do we have? To a slightly older thing from the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency, it was claimed that obviously the United States has the absolute most spy satellites. They said 83, Russia had 50, and China had 36. But this is an older article at the beginning of Trump's. But at that time, none of that information was already up to date. And people were talking about that sounds about the same amount that's been out since the Corona program, which ended in 72. So I went and I found an article from the DW, which is a German article, and they claim, so we have these satellites that are called NRO satellites, and they're military satellites. They are massive and they're very secretive. There's very little information you can find anywhere to find out what exactly these things are doing. And this is, this is what we keep hearing, like we don't know over and over and over again. Like, it is incredible how well they're keeping this under wraps. But they said of the NRO satellites that they have 154 military ones here in the United States. And that's just the ones they know about. And keep in mind, these are the military ones specifically. But if you count them all together, there are between 339 to 485 military satellites in total. And not all of them are necessarily spy satellites. So, and they all have these like different orbits. So some might be in our Clark's belt. Some might be swinging around in an elliptical orbit. Some of them, because it's all about timing. And I think the idea, from what I gathered, is that they can switch satellites to avoid interruption, to look at things in a different way so that it's hard to track what they're tracking. Especially as the Earth spins and tilts and the moon gets closer and further away, and different, gravitational forces. So it's become a very complex thing that these satellites can do.
Yeah, which makes sense, because if you're watching a target from space, that satellite's going to pass right through in a few minutes. So it makes sense to have like another one right there to get the rest of the footage.
Yeah. So, I mean, instead of having one camera, you have 500.
Do any of these have missiles on them?
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, we have ballistic missile technology. We've had that for a few decades. So why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if our anti-ballistic missile defense could also guard against them. I don't know. I really do want to do more research on this. Just, like, it's weird. Well, we get most of our actual representative information about things like this from science fiction. And those are the people who seem to know the absolute most, that have done the research, and then they put a film out and it's like, this is fiction, but I'm using a bunch of facts to make this story. So the DW website also said Russia has 71 military satellites and China has 63. Other countries such as France, Germany, Italy, India, and UK, Turkey, Mexico, Colombia, they all have 10 each, less than 10 each. France and Germany have the most with 9 and 7. And that's not including joint operations. So globally, there are between 2,500 to 28 active satellites. And it's hard to tell if those are all just the military ones, because we also have all these tech people putting satellites up too. Like, I can only imagine how bizarre. Yes. Like, do they edit those out of pictures like from space? Because a lot of times it'll just be a picture of one. I feel like it's littered.
Maybe they're far enough. Maybe they're far enough away. I know there's like a lot of space that are because when you just said active satellites, how many inactive are there?
Yeah, good point. It kind of closed with the idea that since the early days and the end of the Cold War, technology has advanced to such a degree that we are being watched, for good or for bad, almost constantly by military, commercial, and non-governmental bodies. That includes satellite monitoring, urban and rural development, agriculture, climate change, road traffic, people smuggling. Yeah, right. They're just watching their cargo, because let's quit lying. America is one of the #1 countries in the world for human trafficking. And I'm so sick of pretending like, or mainstream media, like pretending like we're not.
Yeah,
So,
like getting write-offs, like coming across the border. Yeah.
So
Just look the other way and you'll be fine.
yeah. I mean, they could have been hunting predator from space. Tracking it with satellites. Why are we doing down here and teams getting slaughtered in the jungle? Come on, guys.
No, technology was too good.
Yeah. So our next story, Alex Jones.
Oh yeah, Alex Jones. He's been having quite a few weeks.
Yeah, you want to wrap up the case for us?
Sure. So if y'all know where he's been having an anti-defamation lawsuit against him. Well, this lawsuit was one of them. He has another one in Connecticut coming up.
And he's also been
Uh,
doing stuff with for the past decade.
oh yeah, this is all related to the Sandy Hook hoax that he claimed. So he was facing defamation from that. The parents were called crisis actors. He called the parents crisis actors. So they faced a lot of scrutiny, a lot of death threats, people calling them fake. And so you know what? They sued him because why wouldn't you when you're putting these people's lives at risk for your bottom line? So they sued him for 151 million, but they were awarded 50
Was it
million.
for slander or
Slander, defamation, and distress.
yeah?
Yeah, so there's all that. They only won 50 million, which they probably not going to get the full 50 million. They'll probably get like 10 million, if that. But yeah, so that's only one of the lawsuits. He got caught lying on under oath multiple times. Like the judge called him out on it.
You lie twice a day. You can't keep lying.
Yeah, and like even in the middle of this trial, he would go on and do his show, and he would go and trash the judge on the show.
You're a goblin.
Yeah, like the person in charge of your verdict, you're doing this. Like it's not the his case was full of a lot of dumb decisions.
Well, you know what? He's actually been making more. His money has increased. That his show is making since this trial started.
Is it selling his stuff? His
Yeah, even from like the show bringing in like $450,000 a week to they lost track after 800,000 in sales. And like one day ago, I got to find the number, but he just made his most money in a single day recently. At all at the same time, he keeps trying to file for bankruptcy and claiming he can't pay these people.
Yeah, and the judge like I'm claiming I can't afford to pay $2 million. Like, well, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like you can't just say you declare bankruptcy. I was thinking of that, but the office like I declare bankruptcy. That's how he is right now.
Yeah. The numbers, he was ordered to pay 4.1 million in compensatory damages and 45.2 in punitive damages to Neil Heslin and Scarlett Lewis. And they were the parents of a 6-year-old son named Jesse Lewis. And just in case Sandy Hook doesn't ring a bell, that was the Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14th of 2012. There was a mass shooting and 20 students ages 6 and 7 years old plus 6 staff members were murdered in Newtown, Connecticut.
Yeah, it was horrible. I remember seeing the news and I was like, man, that's fuck one. It's messed up. And nothing happened after that though. Like no reform, we just been about business. Like we said, we kind of forgot about those kids.
Well, it certainly helps them be able to go about business when you have somebody, Alex Jones, harping on his show for hours and hours and hours over the years about how the whole thing was a false flag. And now he's created like Alex Jones is the gateway to conspiracy theories on the right.
Yeah. He's crazy. There's multiple proof. Like you can't take what he says seriously. I think he had a lawsuit against him. Like you can't believe what I say.
Yeah. He even, from my understanding, he admitted at some point in court that the massacre was real.
Yeah, he admitted to the parents. I don't think you're an actor. And that's after he called the father, what's his name again? Neil. He called Neil Heslin slow, and questioned his mental facilities.
You can't stop lying.
No.
He cannot stop lying. He's out of control. Like oh God. And when I first found out about what the lawyer's leak, I guess he was supposed to send him like some text messages and like, I've never talked about this offline, but he sent him literally all of the contents.
Yeah, like, and they let him know. They gave him like time to pull it back. They didn't
The
use that.
lawyer knew and didn't even tell Alex Jones for a week and let him just sit up there and lie on the stand.
Yeah, so it was apparently it was a legal assistant. It was a legal assistant who gave him the information, but I think the head attorney gave him the link. The link was to the whole contents, and like, hey, you know what you just gave us? Said, oh, disregard the hyperlink, but that's not pulling it back. So that's not pulling back. It's just saying like, hey, ignore that. Ignore all this evidence right here.
Oh man, that was more cathartic than some of the moments in the Amber Heard trial, because his family suffered so immensely.
Yeah, and then like when he was on trial, like, oh, you're having your Perry Mason moment, and then the lawyer did. He had his Perry Mason moment. It's never a good idea to like, hey, give him that little lure right there, and like they got him. Like they were like, oh, like, so you said like when you searched through your phone there was no mentions of Sandy Hook in your text messages, but as you know, I have now, as you know now, I have all this information that your lawyer just gave to me. Gave him the 10-day period, and now it says, right, you mentioned this many times. It's all in here, and now like there are talks about using some of the evidence from that phone and trying to give it to the January 6th committee. All the stuff on the phones before January 6th, 2001. But I mean, there's a lot of conversations in there with like Roger Stone and other officials. I think it goes up to May of 2020.
Yeah.
So there's probably some juicy stuff in there.
I'm sure, like that's a tight knit group. And they're all insane and they all love chaos and destruction. I started looking at how apparently every time any of these cases came up, he's repeatedly tried to declare bankruptcy. As soon as this case started, he tried to declare. In April, he filed for voluntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the Southern District of Texas for InfoWars, but claiming liabilities as much of $10,000 million each. That didn't work out. He filed again 1 week before in Austin. And in June, a federal judge in Texas tossed the bankruptcy protection case out. He's been trying to move the money around between InfoWars and free speech systems and free
by parents.
It's like the overarching free.
Yeah, but I think one of them is under his parents' name, and some of them are under his children's name. So you can avoid losing control, kind of like how.
Yeah, but like they're all like, no, no, you can't do this. And he tried to do it in previous cases, and like he's trying again before he goes into the next one, but now he's making record profits. So
it's on the news, like Roger Stone, like, hey, go buy for my boy, go help him out.
How insane. Like in court, he admits that this was real, and his insane cult followers are like, you know what? I'm going to support him even more now.
He's a proven liar. He's not telling the truth. Like he was caught lying so many times, and yet that's our boy.
I don't, I don't understand it. But speaking of being that's our boy, I don't know if you heard about so yesterday in Cincinnati, Ohio, there was this MAGA crazy person. His name's Ricky Schiffer out of Columbus, 42 years old. He decided that enough was enough with the FBI and he was going to do something. So he posted at 9:30 in the morning Eastern time on the Truth Social. He said, well, I thought I had a way through bulletproof glass and I didn't. If you don't hear from me, it is true. I tried attacking the FBI and it'll mean either I was taken off the internet, the FBI got me, or they sent the regular cops and then the rest of the post ended mid-sentence. So what he did was he went to the FBI center in Cincinnati and he tried to break in with a nail gun.
Nail gun.
The nail gun. He tried to break that bulletproof glass with nails. So they found, like, since Truth Social has deleted the profile, which was at Ricky W. Schiffer Jr. Once media started, figuring out who he was. So on Tuesday, but they did find a few things earlier in the week. On Tuesday, during the Mar-a-Lago search, he posted, quote, "I'm having trouble getting information, but Viva Frei said patriots are heading to Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago is. I recommend going and being Florida. I think the feds won't break it up. If they do, kill them." And then later in the day, he said, oh, and Viva Frei is a right-wing YouTube personality, by the way. And then later on Tuesday, he said, "People, this is it. I hope a call to arms comes from someone better qualified. But if not, this is your call to arms from me. Leave work tomorrow as soon as the gun shop, Army, Navy store, pawn shops open. Get whatever you need to be ready for combat. We must not tolerate this one. This time, we must respond with force. If you know of any protests or attacks, please post them here." So he ended up, there ended up being like a car chase, and his final stand was in a cornfield, and he was not going to go in. He made sure that they shot him, apparently, from they were like begging him, like, "Let's negotiate, let's take you in." And he's like, "No, I'm going to wave my gun around until you shoot me." And then they did.
So suicide by cops.
Kind of. He was trying to martyr himself, I think, but yeah. I'll tell you what, he did not have 60 shots in him. I will say that.
Maybe 60 shots of something else.
Insanity.
Yeah.
But he was a construction mechanic. They also, internet sleuths, some of my favorite people to follow, especially in TikTok, which, a lot of people are like, TikTok's not the news. No, but there are local people dedicated to following all of this stuff. Half of this group of TikTok helped the FBI identify thousands of people who were at January 6th. And guess what? They recognized him. He was on grounds during January 6th. There's no evidence that he actually went into the building, but yep, he was there.
Of course.
Apparently one of the guys who was leading it, he had said, like, we should wait until they approve it before we try to breach the Capitol. He had told one of the head people, but they're like, "Nah, son, we're doing this." And so I think that's maybe the only reason he didn't go in. I'm not sure.
He was waiting for approval. Okay, so he's a sheep. He's a sheep. He's a good little sheep.
Yes. Yep. A well-behaved sheep, I guess.
4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
Yeah. So, obviously the FBI has all been advised to keep their head on a swivel. We already know from our main story that we're going to get to about, kind of, it says incels, but it's really a lot more about the patriarchal violence they've been using. And in March of this year, the Secret Service released a national assessment threat, and that there will be increasing attacks by male supremacists. I'm still not convinced, by the way, that the shooter in Uvalde, Texas is not part of the Manosphere. I've been trying to follow up on that, but they've been really tight on his motivations. But yeah, we will also continue to see an increase in these things, these threats and these fights. The FBI is in danger, and now they're attacking police. And honestly, that is like the best case scenario for us, because they've been working so hard to infiltrate the police and infiltrate the military. But if they're going to openly attack them, there's nothing they can do to help them. They have to fight back, unless they want to openly just be like,
expose yourself like that.
Yeah, unless you want to openly just walk out of the FBI doors and be like, "I'm flipping," like. But So this, was him responding to the Trump Mar-a-Lago warrant, which is our next story. So how that played out was it started last Friday. I guess they were filing a motion, and then on Monday morning they got the warrant. They executed it. They have 11 sets of classified documents that they found. Some were marked as top secret. The Wall Street Journal reports included is binders of photos, handwritten notes, information about the president of France, and the executive grant of clemency for Trump ally Roger Stone. Some 20 boxes of items were taken. The FBI did not seek access to search private guest rooms, but did ask access to the 45 office and, quote, all storage rooms and all other rooms or areas within the premise used or available to be used by the former president and his staff, and in which boxes or documents could be stored, including all structures or buildings on the estate. But they didn't go through everything. So
they went through a safe. He made sure they know that they went through a safe.
Yeah, on the Daily Show, Trevor Noah was like, everything showing at the state in his safe was just a bunch of McRibs. He wouldn't store any classified documents there. It's not that important.
That'd be in his desk drawer, unlocked.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, just
apparently Mar-a-Lago is more secure than the National Archive. Who knew?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but from my time in the military, I had a secret and then a top secret with my work with Tomahawk plus Need to Know. And we couldn't take anything out of the room. You can't take anything. That's classic standard. And guess what?
That's what they get him on.
Post, like wanting to punish Hillary over emails that is like nowhere near this. There wasn't actually any rule against what she did, and she openly turned everything over, and they're like, okay, nothing bad happened. They were still so hopped up on that during his presidency he changed the mishandling from a 1-year potential time in jail to 5 years. Right now,
how ironic.
Right now he's looking at, I believe, 3 years. You got down what the search warrant, it just finally came out at 3
I got the codes here. So US code 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. US code 2071, concealment, removal or mutilation generally. And 1519. Is
that what you said?
Mutilation? Yeah, mutilation. And US code 1519, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigation and bankruptcy. So that's what they got them on. So destroying, altering, removing, concealing, transmitting, all that. Okay.
Yeah. And the Washington Post reported on Thursday that classified documents relating to nuclear weapons were among the items sought by FBI. And to me, that is horrifying.
Yeah. I wouldn't put him past him and sell them off.
Yeah. And maybe they've obtained, access to them, and they've got loyalists who would launch a nuke for him.
No.
I can't dismiss that super possibility.
It feels treasonous a little bit to have all this nuclear codes in an unsecure location.
Yes, and information about Marcone, like our allies. But obviously he bumped heads with Marcone a bunch. Like, what was it? And what was the other? So nuke codes they have on the president of France, the things about clemency for Roger Stone. I can't remember. I guess we don't have a more detailed list yet, do we? Because this is like all information as of in the last couple of hours. So there's probably not going to, it's unlikely that we'll hear anything else again till Monday, but who knows? So there you go. We got you update to the information if you hadn't heard it yet. Yeah, insane.
It is. But that's surprising.
Yeah, and this is not small news. Like,
I remember there being a joke when he left, he's packing up all the stuff and he's probably gonna take a lot of the stuff, this top secret stuff with him and hide it out. And
we have video evidence.
yeah.
We watched him do it.
The only reason they had to raid his place, they tried to go through other methods, but he kept on denying. So this is what was left over. That's why Hillary didn't get the same treatment, because Hillary was very compliant with all of their requests.
Also, it was basically just work emails. Like,
Yeah.
there was nothing there. They were thorough, I just can't believe, I just can't get over how serious these documents are. Like, this is not something he would not have known not to do. Absolutely not. And it is a big deal, particularly when you're looking at some of the highest, most dangerous technology, the highest, most dangerous technology in the world. And I can't believe, I'm actually really irritated that it's taken them this long to do it. They basically have been begging him, rubbing his feet. June, you sure you don't want to give it to us? Brought you a Slurpee. Can we please have it? Go in there and take it. And the fact that they didn't even search everything,
Should have been allowed out the door with it. Like, oh, we have a bunch of stuff missing, and Trump is suddenly gone. I wonder what happened. Like, they should have. They shouldn't have let it get that far. That should have been that day.
Somebody should have been standing at these doors, like, no documents are allowed to be removed from this room, period. That's what it should be when you have presidents turning over, especially one who just tried to overthrow the government. And we're going to just watch him walk out with government documents and be like,
we know he's petty. Like, he's not going to do anything good with it.
We don't even know how many people could have been in danger or have been in danger during this time, because we know he's unhinged and his people barely keep him in line. And since then, the people who were barely keeping him in line in the government, they aren't around him anymore. Only his yes people are.
He still got his boy Giuliani. I guess he's still running for governor of New York.
Is he really?
Yeah. That's where all that stuff like him. I remember that him getting pat on the back. That was him out during a rally.
Oh my God. I thought it was just like at a grocery store.
It was at a grocery store, but he's still rallying out, like he's people in the truck, like he won't talk to people, like to anyone like who disagrees with him, like he won't talk to them. Like he just kind of goes off and drives off without addressing them.
What, and like when that guy pat him on the back, he was like, "What's up, dickhead?" Right? Is that what he said?
Something like that. I was like, oh, I was attacked. I was pushed and shoved. Look, I'm not dead.
Yeah, you are weak, son.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to talk about in the news?
I guess not with that. I guess we go to the main story now.
Sure. Okay. So our main story, the main focus is incels, but I've been working on putting the timeline together because it's not always complete. Mine is still not complete. We're going to just talk about the bigger incidences that I'm pretty sure everybody's at least heard of. But yeah, so if you have not been listening to our series on the Manosphere, basically what that looks like is it is a growing online community on various channels like Reddit, 4chan, 8chan. They have some newer stuff where men get together and talk about how much they hate women and what they want to do to them and how they want to inflict violence and how they can control them. And over time, it's gotten more organized. The incels are pretty intent on, wanting their entitled sex, and they believe so much that they're due to it that they will use violence to do it. So one of the terms I want to talk about is patriarchal violence. And there's a really good definition from a bunch of groups that have gotten together to work on it, including Southern Poverty Law Center, which I do recommend. Like, you can get a really good overview from the Southern Poverty Law Center, but I'm also trying to give you a good one if you enjoy the show. By the way, if you are just tuning in, this is In Other News. I'm your host, Rachel Bloomstrom, and we're joined today by Zach Bird out of, I keep wanting to say Tallahassee, Florida, but it's not Tallahassee, it's
Over
Tampa.
here, Tallahassee, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the problem is one of these big stories is in Tallahassee, so that's why I keep doing it. But yeah, so there's also a really great place you can go that a lot of these groups are now working together called Abolishing Patriarchal Violence Innovation Lab. And the definition of patriarchal violence is an interconnected system of institutions, practices, policies, beliefs, and behaviors that harm, undervalue, and terrorize girls, women, femme, intersex, and gender nonconforming, LGBTQ, and other gender oppressed people in our communities. PV, is patriarchal violence for short, is a widespread, normalized epidemic based on the domination, control, and colonizing of bodies, genders, and sexualities happening in every community globally. PV is a global power structure and manifests on the systemic, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized level. It is rooted in interlocking systems of oppression. So it's the way we keep women oppressed. And to some people, I don't know why it's easier to see more clearly when you look at other nations than it is when you look at ours. But I feel like it's pretty easy to see when you look at ours, especially once we start unlocking how this has gained so much momentum. So I want to open with playing a clip from the great gentleman, I believe they call, or the magnificent gentleman, Elliot Rogers. And this was from his video just days before going on a killing spree in Isla Vista. And we will get to him, but this is the person that most of these incels especially mimic and what he believes he is owed.
And every single day, I have to be insulted by the sight of all these lesser men walking around with beautiful girls. I see so many couples where the guy is just so unworthy of having a beautiful girlfriend like that. And yet they're together. He has her love. And I've never had any of that love and affection from girls. Why do you girls give those guys a chance, but not me? I deserve it more. It's not fair. Every single day I have to be insulted by the sight of guys enjoying girls while I'm all alone. Even watching that sunset up there is a bittersweet experience because while I love the peaceful beauty of it, I can't help but think of all the other guys who get to enjoy that same sunset with a beautiful girlfriend at their side while I'm sitting here all alone in my car. There's no beautiful girl in that passenger seat to enjoy it with me. Because you girls have something against me. I don't know what it is. Whenever I drive through this college town called Isla Vista, which is just right next to UCSB, I see so many hot, beautiful blonde girls walking with absolute stupid, obnoxious looking douchebags. And I just can't help but think how wrong that is. Those beautiful blonde girls should be walking with me, not those brutes. I deserve them more. Why do those horrible men get to experience the love and affection of such beautiful, heavenly girls, while I've had to rot in loneliness all my life? It's not fair. It's such an injustice. I don't understand you girls. It's like your sexual attraction is flawed. It's perverted. You're attracted to the wrong kind of guy. You should be attracted to guys like me. Beautiful, magnificent guys.
It's so pathetic. That
Um,
is the
this is the part that came right after him talking about how magnificent he was because of all of his great qualities. And
This is the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Like, why me? It's not fair. Like, oh my God. Are you 5 years old?
it's so funny. But the scary thing is, a few days later, this guy went and killed, quote, Chad's and Stacy's. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it, we want to laugh at them and it's become a joke, but it's not a joke. They're serious. They are deadly serious.
They're a serious joke.
They are a serious joke. And I it's funny because like there's moments where you're like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him, but then like you hear like the most egotistical, like entitled, childish attitude, like, I deserve this, I should have it, not this guy. And so what he's talking about, if you're not familiar with the term Chads, so incels originally started, like one of their big websites was called PUA Hate. So they were against the pickup artists. We did an episode on pickup artist tactics, but we'll talk a little bit about some of their violence more coming up. But yeah, so they originally started like that. And then their name changed later to make it very focused about just like hating women. But they hate those men too. So a Chad is like, basically I want to say a himbo, but like himbos are really nice. A lot of these guys are really terrible guys. They're misogynist as well. They're just better at hiding it. They will use manipulation tactics to get women and then treat them bad and use patriarchal violence in order to perpetuate that women should be in more submissive roles to them. And the incels want to punish them too, or originally they did.
They're pretty much the jock type from any high school movie from the 80s. That's pretty much what a Chad is.
Yeah. And then a Stacy is the beautiful, heavenly blonde. This dude's like super hung up on blonde chicks. If you listen to anything he says, like, I would say 50 to 75% of the time when he mentions women, he mentions blonde women specifically. So in March of this year, a new Secret Service report details came out about the growing threat from men who call themselves anti-feminists or involuntary celibates and draw motivation for violence from their inability to develop relationships with women. Early intervention and behavioral threat assessments could be difference between life and death for women targeted by the growing ideology, according to the 26-page report. The report concluded that while there is, quote, no one profile of an individual who plans or execute an act of targeted violence, the investigators must consider potential targets when seeking to thwart attacks, as suspects routinely explore multiple targets during the planning process before making their final selection. And through my research, you can go and see, all of these men who have committed these things have been generally in more than one of these forums. They always talk about violence against women. It becomes an obsession and they hype each other up in these groups. They're like, yeah, do it. Go ER, which going ER is Elliot Rogers, who we just heard from. And if I didn't define incel, it means involuntary celibate. It was a term coined actually by a woman in Canada, pre-2000s. It was supposed to be like, it wasn't an AOL group, but might as well have been, of people who were just having trouble finding love. And it was supposed to be a supportive environment. And then she found somebody and she moved on, and it got taken over by men who felt like they were supposed to be receiving sex and women and in everything, just the way he described. And, they think they're perfectly fine the way they are. And thus was born the beginning of the, quote, beta uprising. So these guys are betas, if you also are familiar with that term.
Beta cucks.
Yeah. So Chads, you could also call alphas. And, well, he's not a beta cook, because to be a beta cook, wouldn't you have to be submissive to a woman?
You had to be in a relationship, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are the signals then? What are they in?
Oh, those are the men going their own way.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are the cool men who are just like too good for women, like who just need it. Like, yeah. But one of the key features about pretty much everyone in the manosphere is that they despise women, but at the same time, they covet their affection and companionship. In their minds, women are both vapid, mindless airheads who offer no value to society beyond the sexual marketplace. And yet they believe having a girlfriend would increase their quality of life, which sociological studies show that married men live longer than single men, whereas the opposite is true for women. Women who are single, not raising these misogynists, live longer than married women who are carrying the weight. Yeah. So in the report that we'll get to this about Scott Barely, he's the Tallahassee hot yoga mass shooter. The National Threat Assessment from the Secret Service says that the attacker was motivated to carry out violence by his inability to develop or maintain relationships with women, along with his perception of women's societal power over men. So for decades, he engaged in numerous instances of inappropriate and criminal behavior directed towards women and girls. And these behaviors resulted in him losing several jobs, being barred from public locations, and having multiple contacts with law enforcement, some of which resulted in arrest. So anti-feminism is another buzzword to tie these groups together because mainstream media is not saying these words. We talked about when we did our intro, the red pill, and the red pill is when men accept all of the manosphere is basically red pill. They have convinced themselves that women are the ones actually in charge of society, which many of them will conflate with liberalism. And this isn't just in the United States. This is UK, Canada, Australia, but also in the rest of, Western and Eastern Europe. And we were going to have Callie on, but I think she just finished up wrapping for a film. So we'll hear more about how it's growing in, especially South Africa right now. It's just, it started here basically, and it's spreading, to the places where we relate to the most, and they got to do that. But
so women are in charge, but most of the people in power are men. How does
right? But everything's gone to hell since women have been in charge since feminism. Yep.
I mean, there's only a woman in charge of like a few countries, like thinking Germany
and she stepped down. That was Angela Merkel.
Yeah, I was in New Zealand. Has got a new prime minister who's a woman.
Yeah, Agenda. What's her name? She was so great. And something else, all of the countries that had women leaders during the beginning of COVID had the best record against COVID, keeping their people safe and getting everything going out and dealing with the health crisis.
Must be nice.
Yeah, must be nice.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, because if you remember, New Zealand didn't have a single case for months and months and months.
Yeah, they kept everything shut down tight. Like I won't say they weren't well, they were affected because they were shut down, but
right. But they weren't dying from it.
No, not in numbers like we were.
Yeah.
Still are. I'm saying like we still are. Like
yeah, I know. And it's still really bad. I am pretty happy that I have no evidence that I've ever had it. But I've done the vaccines, I've social distanced, I've not taken very many risks. I've gotten a little riskier lately because I don't wear a mask all the time, but I'm also not getting close to people. I avoid them. If I go inside a location where there's going to be people who might come within 6 feet of me, I always wear a mask. But I don't walking around outside, and there's a couple of places I go to that they basically check everybody's IDs and I still just avoid people. It's just kind of my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, avoiding people, that's my number one pastime.
Yeah, I'm great at it.
Oh, you want to have a conversation? That sounds like a lot of work. I'm gonna go over here, be by myself.
You can try call me later if I have nothing going on.
No, text me.
So getting back to Elliot Rogers, under the male supremacy framework, the Santa Barbara perpetrator, he believed that he was entitled to sex and women in mass deserved death for his deprivation. So this, this is information that comes out of his like 400-page manifesto, like his whole life story. It's incredibly ridiculous. It's
really pathetic.
It's pathetic. And sociologist Michael Kimmel, who studies masculinities, argues that this concept of, quote, aggrieved entitlement explains the motivation behind disproportionately male perpetrated mass killings and everyday violence against women. The aggrieved entitlement is a belief by men that they are entitled to certain things, power, wealth, sex, and that they are entitled to use violence or patriarchal violence to restore what they believe is rightfully theirs. And this is something we see in the white supremacist groups. The entitled killers believe that they need to believe that they were justified, that their murderous rampages were legitimate. And that's why by not getting into these groups and like not doing anything to stop them, just openly free on the internet, we can't fight them. They're openly saying, yeah, do it. And everyone's like, high five. They even say that suicide is a legitimate way out. Like, if you are that unhappy, if you are in that much pain, kill yourself. That's advice they give each other. Kill yourself or kill a bunch of people.
Not great advice.
No. And if you want anything in between, use patriarchal violence.
He's forced to take it.
Yeah. And they aren't even really looking for sex. They're looking for absolute male supremacy, because it gets worse from there. I know I've played a few, I should have set it up, this podcast clip. Maybe I can see if we can do it from here. But since we pulled out of Afghanistan, I've been hearing a lot of these men, especially on the podcast, talking about how, yeah, we really like what the Taliban is doing with women. And we want to do that here. We want to make it worse. And
this totalitarian regime, I dig it.
Yeah. That's let's see. This is from Vincent Joan from the Red Elephant podcast. Let me know if you can hear this. Okay.
We are the Christian Taliban. This is the era of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is on the rise, and people are thirsty for it. They are hungry for this. And we are the Christian Taliban. And we will not stop until the Handmaid's Tale is a reality. And even worse than that, to be honest. Yes, we do have to start rolling back. There was this article from The Atlantic where it's like, well, Alito is on a mission to roll back the rights of women, to roll back the past 100 years of rights that were given to women. Yes, that is what we're doing. And it's only going to get worse for you.
So I know he's saying it under the Christian nationalists, but as I've been talking about, these groups that were previously separate are now sharing all these ideologies, especially the male supremacy. So the Christian nationalists, the evangelical movement, already had women placed below them. And I believe we've talked about how the major, the family that runs through Washington, D.C. and is using government members to go shake hands with other countries. And as long as you say Jesus, that's okay. But only men are allowed. No women are allowed in there.
And it's funny how they're appropriating someone else's culture for they call themselves a Christian Taliban. Okay, so appropriating brown people's culture again. Okay, I see you. I see you over there.
You are very uncreative. But you can see how much these ideas have become interwoven now, because they've been left to fester and grow this whole time. This is the whole train now, all these different carts full of violent people, and they've found a way to work together. And that was through Trump.
Yeah. Now the dog's visiting me in here.
And yeah, it's a fuzzy, blurry, wavy tail I see. So incels refuse to accept responsibility for their circumstances. Instead, they believe their inability to attract women makes them victims of oppression. They believe men are the true victims of gendered oppression, and the power has been usurped, and that feminism is a front to disguise male subjugation. That's that red pill ideology behind it.
There's a feed over there. How about?
The subculture is part of an online male supremacist ecosystem that is included in their list of hate groups. And incels are mostly male and heterosexual and are most often white, though we did do an episode on the Black Manosphere because there are some differences. There's a lot of internal racism there as well, but like their subjugation of women is probably even more overt and performative. But they can't even get a good number of how many, because some of these groups will have hundreds of thousands, then they'll get shut down. Some of them will get tens of thousands in a couple of months, and then they'll get shut down. If you were to try to look at all across, it's millions of men probably, but because there has been so little like looking into it by the, here we are in 2022 and we're just now putting this all together. And I got to tell you, the list is long. The incel rebellion is what they call it. In the late 1990s. Oh yeah, that's the Canadian woman. But so all of these groups just sexual objectification of women and calls for violence targeting women. So pre-2000s, let's look at some of these attacks. In 1989, there was Marc Lepine of the Montreal Polytechnique fighting feminist, and he killed 14 women. In the 2000s, we saw George Sedini on August 4th of 2009. He went to the LA Fitness Club in Collier Township outside of Pittsburgh and murdered 3 women and injured 9 other cells and killed himself. And before Elliot Rodgers, people would start saying they were going Sedini. So he became a big leading person for them. 2010s, and I know you got to watch this, is when we saw the rise of revenge porn.
Oh yeah. I was going to ask before we moved on to that. Like, is Ed Kemper involved in it? Because he did kill a lot of women too.
So these are people who like put out messages saying specifically that they did this. I'm certain, Ed Kemper is absolutely an example of somebody who was anti-feminist, anti-woman, absolutely falls into this category, just not a card-carrying member, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, it's a very, very widespread ideology. And this list is by no means complete. I tried to keep it a little shorter for
I guess a lot of his murders were before a lot of these terms were even around.
Yeah. I don't actually know too much about him. You want to give us a little bit of a rundown
about Kemper? So he was pretty much raised by his grandparents. He killed his grandma when he was underage. Then he killed his grandpa right after that because he didn't want him to know that his wife was dead, and he was put into a psychiatric ward until he was like 18. Then they gave him kind of the go ahead to leave. They said he was cured because he was a model inmate.
That's so much like Elliot Rodgers. Like the guy was well groomed. He was from a rich family. He was well spoken.
They let him do a lot of the help him out with a lot of the studies there. From what I've seen, like he's a smart guy, but he is just kind of evil. Like then after that, it was like he was picking up hitchhikers from like UCLA and then killing them, beheading them, and
were they all women?
Yeah, they were all women. He was back living with his mom after that, and he hated his mom.
I feel like I've seen interviews with him, or maybe was it on that show Manhunter? That was on the
Manhunter.
And that had a lot of direct quotes from him, right?
Yeah, he was actually because he was one of the people we saw there. Was it Manhunter or Mindhunter?
Mindhunter.
Yeah.
Mindhunter.
He was on the first season. I need to get back to watching that. It was good, but
it was a really good show.
He was on the first season of that. So a lot of that, and I heard I looked into him like months ago. It was like some broadcasts, and they were talking about him.
Yeah. So the only, you know what, the other reason he's a serial killer, this list is just mass killers.
Mass killers.
Yeah, the list I have right here is a mass killer. So that's honestly probably the only reason. But yeah, most of those serial killers, especially starting in the 70s, and that's when, you know, feminism really, the second wave feminism really started taking off. But before that, patriarchal violence was just the way of life. And then, you know, we had the women's liberation movement, and there was actually a lot of men who were alongside of it, you know, because they also were sick of like these strict gender conforming stereotypes. Like they wanted to be able to cry and show emotion. They wanted to be allowed to be a caring father. They wanted, you know, they wanted to not have to fit into this box. But by about the 1980s, especially like Christian nationalists and whatnot said, well, nothing's fixed. So obviously it's all women's fault. So that's how it started losing space again. But yeah, maybe I should have. I didn't even think to put serial killers on here because my thing is like the mainstream media, you know, like the individual serial killers, they always make them out to be this like lone wolf, single profile, whatever. No matter even like whatever their motivations are. But they absolutely should be included in this list. But they don't even do it for the mass killers. They don't, you know, these guys, almost all of them leave messages behind saying, I did it because I hate women. Anti-feminism is the problem. I'm an incel. This is the beta uprising, like all of them. And they never say that on the news. They're like, I think maybe he was Islamophobic.
Yeah, or like, oh, he was just misunderstood. He had obvious mental health issues. Like, it's also being twisted by you are what you consume. And if you consume a bunch of damaging ideas or hostile ideas, you're going to become hostile.
Right. And so when the internet started and we have these online forums where all these guys can get together and reaffirm each other and say, no, you're right. It is women. And you know what? Violence is the answer. Then now it's organized. Now you have communities. And if you have organized communities that are perpetrating violence that they all think is a good idea, do you know what that is? It's a terrorist. They actually want political involvement. That's why they want to be the Christian Taliban. They want to take over the government. And, you know, each of these groups have their own little bit of ideas. But if there's one thing all of these groups agree on is how do we subjugate women again? How do we stop LGBTQ people? And how, you know, incels, maybe not since they, you know, they do have a large Black community, but all of the others, well, you know what? Actually, the Christian nationalists have decided that as long as you're a man, it's okay too. So really the white supremacists are the only ones like now trying to keep BIPOC people down. But, you know, the other groups are like accepting BIPOC men in order to super flex their power. Like it gives them more numbers and it helps people who are otherwise oppressed feel like they are no longer being oppressed because now I'm accepted in this group.
I see it. So you're not just standing out in the crowd. You have these other folks just like you going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Need help, dude. Need help.
Seriously. Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, in the manosphere, I mean, we have groups who quote men's right activists, but all they do is try to stop women. All they do is wreck feminist things that are trying to improve conditions. They even want to improve conditions for men by trying to dismantle toxic masculinity, which most of these men are suffering from. They are self-inflicting this very toxic role and in turn, you know, making it impossible to make a real connection.
Yeah, I saw a TikTok today. This dude who's talking about like what type of role he's talking to. Dude's been married for 20 years, successful marriage for 20 years. Like, so what type of roles do y'all take? Like roles, like we trade off things. Like something needs to be done, I'll do, and if not, she'll do it. It's not like a competition. There's no set chores for a certain person. Like, so who does most of the cooking? Like, whoever wants to cook. Like,
yeah.
And it seemed like such a wild idea to him. Like, and it's like I can't even talk to this guy anymore. Like, who does all the construction? Well, depends on what's being built. If it's one of the toys with a bunch of stickers, then she's going to do it because I don't mess with stickers.
Like whoever is, you know, best qualified for the thing.
Yeah.
I dated a guy, and he was in school to be a biologist. He'd never really worked with his hands, so I put all the furniture together. I built things. Like my mom taught me that. My father, he booked and managed bands, and then he got into selling insurance, and he ran his own business. So my mom did all of the physical labor in the house, like all the redecorating. She's the one who showed me how to change oil. She's the one who showed me how to change tires. And like,
Yeah.
so what?
He wasn't very handy.
No.
Yeah, that was fine, which is fine.
Yes, you did
Need to
super
be.
fine.
Yeah.
I want to, like, I enjoy doing those, like my brother. So even though my parents were like that, I still just remember it was so funny because like I was always told to wash dishes, which I abhor. I hate it. Like
know.
Zach and I have been roommates before, and like I hate it so much. Like we would split up, like, if you do the kitchen, I'll keep the rest of the house clean, and then we'll rotate the bathroom. And like that's and like really it's mostly dishes. Like I'll still go in and like mop the floor and stuff once in a while. Just please.
Dishes are gonna be dirty every day.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always dishes.
I don't mind doing dishes. That's cathartic. It's kind of zone out and think about the day.
Well, I mean, even as like a little kid, like I couldn't stand my hands being dirty. And then the idea of touching dishes. And then, of course, I was terrified of the garbage disposal. And then one time my granny shoved my hand down her sink because I had poured like little bits of ramen noodle in there. And I didn't know she didn't have a garbage disposal. So she forced me to stick my hand in there. And I'm like screaming bloody murder. It was very traumatic. I was like 6 years old, but still.
Instead of like taking out the U pipe and getting it out from there.
Probably could have just rinsed it down. It was just the little pieces, that were broken at the bottom.
Like
run some water.
Force it through. That's what Drano's for.
Yeah, it's really, but whatever. She's a pretty firm person. And I only knew her very young, but everybody loved her. So, but yeah, I mean, no, this idea that like you're born with this genital set, therefore for the rest of your life you are prescribed to do these specific things is literally the dumbest reasoning in the entire history of reasoning.
Yeah. So like, oh, I mean, women should do all the cooking. Like, okay, but what if you're by yourself? Then how are you going to survive?
you're gonna eat like crap until a woman can come and take care of you.
Then like, oh, I wonder why I can't get any women. Like, I can't cook. I can't clean.
I can't wipe your own ass. Actually, there is men in the manosphere that are so homophobic they don't think they should wipe their own ass because it's gay.
So they just want to be stinky.
Yeah, they don't. That's masculine to them in some bizarre capacity.
Guys, just smelling like crap, masculine.
Yeah. And then do you know what their girlfriend, like if they date somebody and they're like, I can't tell you how many times I've read women saying they went to do laundry the first time for some guy they were seeing. And like, there's just actual feces in their underwear, like free sharding. Like,
nope.
Yeah.
Gross.
And so gross. One woman said one of the guys, like, she was saying he didn't want to wear pants in his house. And so she could not, when she found that out after, she moved in with him, she was like, everything is covered in feces. Everywhere his butt sat is feces.
It's gross.
Disgusting.
Like, I understand I wanted to wear pants.
Yeah. But like, wash your butt.
Yeah. I understand I want to pants, but make sure your butt's clean. Otherwise, you're leaving it on your furniture.
You're going to get pink eye. You're going to get all sorts of, it's sick. Like, and if you are so afraid of touching your butt, get a bidet. Like, come on. This is super basic hygiene. Like, this is what happens to these men who get into these worlds, and like they get further and further in, and like they just all these weird ideas.
I guess speaking of crappy men, I guess I should talk about Hunter Moore.
Yeah, let's hear about Hunter Moore.
So Hunter Moore used to run this website called isanyoneUp.com, which would feature revenge porn placed there by people who either got their accounts hacked and the picture stolen from like the private folder or from
Women who had their accounts hacked, or
from women who got their accounts hacked,
yeah, okay.
and also from like spiteful ex-boyfriends with malicious intent who would post the photos and their socials onto their website.
Also called revenge porn.
Yes, revenge porn. So what really led to his downfall was this woman named Charlotte Law, who like, and I watched the documentary about him last night, and everyone like that talked about her was like, she's amazing. Like she's a total badass because she pretty much did all of the work. She got all the information together. She found victims, people who had like the same incidents like as her daughter, because uh, her daughter's photos ended up on that site, and that's what the battle was against. So she gathered everyone who's like a lot of people who were affected, got it all together, gathered all this evidence, and pretty much led the charge to getting him stopped.
So, like, what kind of evidence was she gathering?
She gathered like pretty much figured out like how their accounts were hacked. So she helped figure that out. So what was happening was,
I'm just curious, how are they doing it?
So they were going through like social media. They contacted them as like as a friend, and they're saying they're going to send a like a password reset to their email box, and just send the link to them, and so they would reset the password, and then said, okay, forwarding, quit it. So sorry. So it said a forwarding address into the mailbox. So if they got a control back of their account again, they still have that backdoor access to get to it. So they would hack these accounts, get their information. So her daughter like took some photos of herself. She didn't send them to anybody. She emailed them to herself, and they got a hold of that and they posted it on the website. And that's what really led to his downfall, is that case. So they got the FBI involved, and the FBI used that information. Go after him because they can't really go after him because of revenge porn, because it wasn't illegal at the time. And still, there's not
How can revenge porn not be illegal?
It's not even legal on a federal level. It's legal now in 48 states. I don't know the 2 states that are holdouts right now.
Texas and Florida is my first guess.
I wouldn't put it past that. So 48 states now have legislation against it. So he ended up on the back. He was total unremorseful about this whole thing. Like, people would beg and plead and offer him money and other stuff to take the photos down. He was like, LOL, too bad. Sucks to be you. So that's excuse me.
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at this finelaw.com, it says as of 2020, 42 states and the District of Columbia have specific laws outlawing distribution of revenge porn. But the laws are still continuing to develop. In order to be guilty of this crime in most states, the distributor must be sending out pictures or a video that are considered sexual in nature, such as showing the victim's intimate body parts or engaging in a sexual act. Simply posting an unflattering picture of your ex in a bathing suit is not pornographic, absent any other circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. So eventually Anonymous went after him.
Oh,
yeah. So
won't do enough good stuff, I feel like.
See right here. So they went after him after he was going to launch, because his main site got shut down in 2012, April 19th, 2012, because it was bought out by James McNibby, an ex-Marine, who was also trying to put it into that site. He had Hunter write like this apology, saying he's sorry. Then he led to his site redirect to Bullyville. It was an anti-bully website. so after that, he went on Anderson Cooper. Hunter went on to Anderson Cooper, and he had a confrontation with Charlotte Law, and like he pretty much pulled back his apology, and then he kind of leaned in to
Wait, when was
the.
this?
This was in 2012 as well.
So he
Um,
started to apologize and then took it back.
Yeah, he took it back once Charlotte like let out all this like stuff. Like we had multiple people reach out to you, so I'm not buying that you're sorry now. Uh,
And then he's like, "You're right. I'm not sorry."
yeah, pretty much.
I-
So
I
he was
just-
going to launch. He was going to launch another website, which would have done a lot of the same stuff, but it would also included like the address of the victims and a map on how to get to their house. That's
That
when.
that sounds like some of the work that men's right activists do. They
Yeah.
they have specifically they will out college women who have accused somebody of rape, and they'll let everyone know who she is and where to find her.
Yeah, that's when Anonymous stepped in, and so let me see what they do. See, they wiped out his social security number. He couldn't flee the country because they revoked his passport. And see, they hacked his bank account and gave all of it to a women's abuse shelter. They shipped hundreds of dildos to his house. And they had him declared in California. So for like a month, he didn't legally exist. He was declared dead in California.
Beautiful. You want to find out about revenge, buddy? You want to live a lifestyle of revenge? Then here, have some yourself. According to this list, at the time in 2022, the states that had no specific revenge porn laws are Indiana, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Montana, New York, Ohio, South Carolina, and Wyoming. But this was in 2020. But I imagine New York has probably, and Massachusetts probably do now.
The documentary in this year, so maybe it's now up to 48, and they passed 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising because they started at 0 not that long ago. So
Okay. So actually, holdouts. Here's a new. No, this one's slightly older. No, that's the same year. Let me try to put the year in, but man, what a nightmare.
Yeah. So this guy's total tool bag, and he deserved. So he ended up getting only 30 months in prison for the email hacking. His associate got 25 months, so he got pretty much 2.5 years.
How can that be such a light? That's such a light sentence.
It is. Yeah, 30 months is nothing.
When did the documentary come out?
Documentary came out this year.
Oh, okay. So this is from August 12th. This is actually a 16-hour-old article. This one says Massachusetts remains an outlier on the issue, even while they're like pleading for change. And this is on Boston Globe. Yeah. So
Massachusetts still the holdout.
That's a little surprising to me.
It is. It's kind of left leaning up there. Of course, there are a lot of bros up there.
Yeah. Well, Boston is kind of conservative. Massachusetts is a real mixed bag. I imagine that the male supremacy movement's pretty strong there, especially thinking about like Sox fans.
Yeah.
So
anyone who was a Kurt Schilling fan.
Yeah. But man, this is the problem. Like these men are getting away with this because the laws are written by men, and they're like, you know what? We don't think this is a big deal. Why are we going to make laws outlawing what our bros are having fun doing?
I want to say one more thing. So Charlotte Law ended up giving out Hunter Moore's address, because he was going to post a site, so she posted his address so he can have a little taste of what it feels like. And and he kind of went batshit crazy. Just excuse my language. I forgot I couldn't cuss. He went kind of crazy. He sent his people, like they called the family, and he was father. So
Yeah.
they all went after her. They sent her death threats. They called her at her home line and said, like, we can find you and kill you. So she was dealing with all of that.
And she was like, I have a gun.
She was a boss. Like,
I have mounted turrets on my home that I can control from a joystick inside of my kitchen.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just ideal.
She was really good, like way cooler than her husband. They had her husband on there. I was like, oh my god, he seems unhelpful. Like he did one thing to help the stepdaughter, and that was to get the slide pulled off, and that was it. Her picture pulled off. He's a lawyer.
So he's like Mr. Wheeler.
Huh?
He's like Mr. Wheeler from Stranger Things.
Yeah, pretty much. Like even when the stepdaughter was talking about, I'm like, oh, he's nice. Like even before they even showed him, like that sounds like so ingenuine. Like
Sounds strange that she stayed with him then.
yeah, well, I mean that was the daughter saying it. The wife's still together.
Right. That's what I'm saying though. Why would the wife
it
stay
did
with him?
surprise me for that. She, like in her earlier days, she used to like party. She was a party crasher, so she crashed like these big Hollywood parties. She like even got like, photos with like celebrities. She had a conversation with Reagan back in the 80s, and
Oh, wow.
so she was infamous party crasher. She was like a fake it till you make it. Make yourself look interesting, and they want to talk to you.
Sounds like a good docuseries.
It was like she was pretty awesome. I left the serious thing. Yeah, she's pretty cool. Like after that, like they don't even name it. They don't give the husband a name. They just call him Charlotte's husband.
Yeah. Well, that's his contribution.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, at least, in that story, there's some good things that came of it.
Yeah.
We do still need a federal law, but I mean, looking at our politicians like Josh Hawley, Matt Gaetz, like those guys are straight up male supremacists. Like,
Yeah.
well, obviously, so is Mitch McConnell. So it's from old to young. I mean, there's no way. And even on the Democrat side, a lot of them are, even if they are not saying it out loud. Somebody was like, I'd seen somebody posted like, all these Republicans crying about the FBI going after Trump. They're like, how would you feel if they went after all the Democrats and exposed them? And it's like, do it right now. Do it all. Investigate them all, because let's just get the trash out of there already. Haven't we been saying this for decades? Like, do it. We don't care. We want them out.
Get them.
Yeah. But going back to some of these mass killings in the name of anti-feminism, male supremacy, incels, beta uprising. In 2011, so this is a big one in Europe. There's a man named Anders Breivik in Norway who murdered 77 people, including some children. And he said directly that he was, quote, motivated by his hatred of feminism, which he considered a poison and a threat to the future of European men. That is a big story to unpack and often doesn't get included in the lists because it just happened in Europe for whatever reason. And also, but like in Norway, to get away with mass killing 77 people, that's in a largely peaceful country. Like, that's what happens when you aren't put all together. There was actually a guy several months ago who, like, he undid his own chance. He had a list of, like, he was aiming for 3,000 people in his mass killing. Oh, that's the wrong. Yeah. But anyways, so the next big one that was super influential was obvious. Elliot Rogers, May 23rd, 2014 in Isla Vista, California. He killed 6 people and injured 14, killed himself. And he has it was a 137 page manifesto. Or no, I'm looking at it. It's 141 pages. I was thinking 400. It felt that long. It really did.
Well, it's still a lot. It's not-
Yeah. Let me I'll read a few quotes from that. He
I
said,
imagine a bunch of whining. That's what I imagine. Like, why me?
yeah, but why me?
There.
I could probably just do a control F search right now and see how many times he said it. Or why not me? Probably one of the two.
Yeah.
Both.
Blondes are like probably there like a couple hundred times.
Why not me? Why not me? Oh, there's two just on this. There's three on just this page alone. Why not me? So here's a couple of quotes from him. He said, "If I can't have you girls, I will destroy you." That was one of the last things he said. Oh, by the way, he's the son of one of the Hunger Games directors, Peter Rogers. He also said, if we can't solve our problems, we must destroy our problems. One day, incels will realize their true strength in numbers and will overthrow the oppressive feminist system, which, keep in mind, the incels are beta uprising. They also want to kill chads. So, you know, a lot of them leave the PUAs because they don't like their tactics, but then they're like, you know what is a good tactic? Mass murder. So whatever that is. In October 1st, 2015, Chris Harper Mercer at Umpqua Community College in Rosenberg, Oregon, killed 9 people, injured 8, and then killed himself. He left a manifesto that you can find on the Incel Wikipedia. It outlined his interest in other mass murders, including the Isla Vista killings, his anger at not having a girlfriend, and his animus towards the world, describing mass murders as people who stand with God. Elliot Rogers is also called the Supreme Gentleman. He gave it to himself, and then everyone else agrees, who are like these, you know, incel lovers.
I used to say you can't give yourself a nickname, but you know what?
He did.
Yeah. I mean, you gave yourself his own nickname. Yeah.
So in his manifesto, Mercer referenced Elliot Rogers in what Los Angeles Times described as a, quote, script of his life to convince the public and media that the killings were the result of his mistreatment by others and that he was merely seeking revenge. So something about these are very pathetic, like victim mindsets. Oh, we're the victim of feminism. Oh, we're the victim of not getting everything our way. And like, you know, honestly, they could just work a little bit on themselves and probably everything would be fine, but they don't want that. Instead, what they want is find ways to force women to give them sex. Like they've even, like some of them have even tried to say that like they should have a designated group of sex workers who are forced to give them sex every year to keep them from committing violence. Sheldon Bentley, in July 31st of 2016, robbed and killed an unconscious man in alleyway in Edmonton. And during the trial, Bentley said he killed the man by stomping on his admin because he was frustrated with the stress from his job and being an incel for 4 years. So he stomped a man to death because he's been an incel for 4 years. He might not have been an incel before that. Who knows? I'm actually kind of weird that one made it on the list. My bad. William Atchison, December 7th, 2017, Aztec, New Mexico, killed 2 people at Aztec High School before killing himself and used the pseudonym Elliot Rogers online forums. In October 2017, incel commenters applauded the mass shooter who killed 58 people in Las Vegas at a music festival for a successful massacre of, quote, normies. Despite the fact that the Las Vegas shooter had a living girlfriend, incel supporters saw him as one of their own, identifying with the despondent rage and alienation of mass shooters who were portrayed as the real victims. And I still can't believe how so rarely, like, people talk about Las Vegas. Like, it's like that thing never happened except for the people who were there. Another one you might recognize, Nicholas Cruz, February 14th, 2018, Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killed 17 people and injured 17 more. He had posted, Elliot Rogers will not be forgotten. A couple of months later, Alec Manassian in Toronto, Ontario, used a vehicle to kill 10 people and nearly kill 16 others. It was largely a women's shopping district. One of the things he had posted was private recruit Manassian infantry 00010, wishing to speak to Sergeant 4chan, please. Charlie 2324961. This incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacies. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger. And a video interview with him was later released in September of 2019, showing Manassian being interrogated by police shortly after the attacks. In the video, Manassian is shown telling police that he was a virgin and that he was motivated by a resentment of Chads and Stacies, as well as women who gave their love and affection to obnoxious brutes rather than to him. The video also shows Manassian saying that he hoped the alleged attack would inspire future masses to join me in committing acts of violence as part of the Beta uprising. Scott Beerley, November 2nd of 2018, who is one of the main subjects of this threat
So
assessment.
it's not like a lot of these people are like, oh, I just want to be remembered, like after they do something horrible.
Yes, you know, definitely. Like they think that, you know, they're justified. Yeah, that's why it's terrorism. It's all in the name of their ideology. And that's why it's so important to talk about like what they say instead of what the police say and what they are telling us. They are doing it because of these things and in the name of these people. And they want to influence society.
Like,
So,
but I want to be remembered for doing something that's even suckier.
yes, for sure. But what is it? Stand with like gods? Yeah, no, that's crazy. That's who they worship. They worship mass murderers. They worship them. You know, like they quote Elliot Rodgers like crazy. He's so
Instead of baseball cards, they have murder cards.
Yeah, incel murderers. So Scott Burley in November 2nd of 2018 killed 2 women and injured 4 more before killing himself at Hot Yoga Tallahassee. He had been a follower of incel ideologies for a long time and also had a history of arrest for grabbing women's buttocks. In 2014, he'd posted several YouTube videos of himself espousing extreme hatred for women and expressing anger over not having a girlfriend, mentioning Elliot Rodger in one video. In the months leading up to the shooting, he posted numerous misogynistic, racist, violent, and homophobic songs to SoundCloud. You know, his in the article from the Secret Service, the attacker illustrates many of the behavior threat assessment themes identified throughout years of Secret Service research, examining the targeted violence. Further, this attacker's history highlights the specific threat posed by misogynistic extremism. This gender-based ideology, sometimes referred to as male supremacy, has received increased attention in recent years from researchers. They also including anti-feminist and involuntary celibates. You know, but a lot of times one of the things that bothers me is they don't include the men's rights activists because they aren't inflicting actual physical violence. They're using the law to cause trauma, but we'll get to them eventually. But I'm hoping that we're starting to paint a picture of how serious all of these people are. Maybe we'll get together. I'll add serial killers to this list. So good thinking. In January of 2019, Christopher Cleary was arrested for posting that he was planning to shoot up a public place soon and being the next mass shooter. Quote, killing as many girls as I see because he'd never had a girlfriend and was a virgin. He has been described as an incel and he was sentenced to 5 years for attempted threat of terrorism. And I'm not even halfway done with this list because in recent years it's gotten so bad. So we will pick up more. I see that we're almost out of time, but we'll pick up from there and I'll try to get into some more detail about the like very specific quotes. As you can see, so since the 2020s, I have at least a dozen on this list. So it's 2022. So It is increasing. It's harder to make the list more clear for sure before that because many of the like police reports and stuff refuse to use these words. So that's why just having the manifestos or finding ways that they're saying the things that they said that we can put them in there. Oftentimes, just like the FBI shooter yesterday, they will go and erase online thing, so we can't even find what they're saying anymore. And they try to declassify it constantly. And do you know why that is?
No.
Because they're male supremacists also.
Yeah.
The mainstream media is controlling the narrative on these attacks. Political action groups, hyper masculine jobs like the FBI, the police, who we've all known 40% of them like commit domestic violence at home. I mean, they're all okay with this. They think this is okay. Or they'll do their bare minimum job, but they're not going to encourage people to put it all together. So that being said, yeah, I can't believe I didn't realize how far. Such a big list. So I will be turning 40 this month, and I will be gone from the 17th till the 26th. But then going to Houston, I will hopefully be releasing an episode on the 19th, which we're going to try to pre-record. Hopefully I can finish up this list, and maybe we'll just try to focus.
We'll be in the same location.
Yeah, we'll be in the same location for like a couple of days, and then I'll leave, and then I'll come back, and we'll be in the same location again, and we can do maybe another show. There might be a week where I re-air the intro to male supremacy, so to help catch up on some of these terms and maybe help tie some of these things together. So because I'm constantly trying to make sure that everybody's aware of it, but I don't want to cover the same thing. I don't want to leave people not understanding what I'm talking about when I'm tying these things together. It's a huge subject. So yeah, we also will be doing a piece on Puerto Rico coming up soon. I have bullying in the works. I'm still trying to put together the religious ideology group. We still have our a former evangelical pastor, and we are looking for a rabbi. So if you know anybody who might want to come on and talk about what the Christian nationalists are doing, we're really looking forward to getting into that, or any other theologians. As always, you check out my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. That helps so much. And it's just at my name, Rachel Bloomstrom. Zach, you want to tell them how to find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Straw Hat Zach, and TikTok with the same handle that Barbara uses.
Yeah, Straw Hat Zach over there.
We're
going to be getting our matching tattoos, including our One Piece tattoos.
A big old X right here.
Oh, I thought it was on the inside of the forearm.
I think it was on the outside because they hold the arm up like this. And
we'll have to look. I was pretty sure it was on the inside of the forearm, but you're probably
they had to take the wrapping off. And
yeah, you're right. You're right. It's been a while since I saw Alabasta.
Yeah.
So today I decided that we would just play Randy Ramo's new song parody called Thoughts and Prayers. If you have never checked out Randy Ramo, he's really a very fun, satirical, political comedian. And yeah, he's delightful. So I hope you enjoy the song. And please don't forget to join us next time in other news.
Are we on?
Back in 5.
All right, let's go.
And 3, 2.
We are back, and I'm joined now by this fucking guy. Senator Cruz, gun violence has become an epidemic in this country, yet your party continues to offer little more than thoughts and...
Look, all of us have had people who've lost loved ones, and then the first thing you do when someone has lost a loved one is you reach out and say, hey, I'm lifting you up in prayer. I'm praying for you, your family.
Yeah, that's cute. But with all due respect, prayers don't stop these horrific tragedies. And should you really be sending out any more thoughts? I mean, you barely have any coming in to begin with. Because you're dumb.